Welcome everybody to East Dundee's special board meeting dated Monday, September 13th, 2021. It's 6 o'clock. If we can have the roll.
Hold on, I'm so
She's blissfully happy right now. I'm sure she is.
You take the roll.
Okay, trustee Mahoney.
Here.
Trustee Andreessen.
Here.
Trustee Coonsey.
Present.
Trustee Britton. Here. Trustee Saviano. Here. Trustee Trevor.
Here.
President Lang.
Here. And if you'll rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That brings us to public comment on agenda items only. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to address the board on an agenda item? Please.
I'm Nancy Fullhorst. I'm at 406 Railroad Street, halfway to Hill. I'll keep it short because I've addressed a lot of this in emails to both the trustees and to the zoning committee. And I frankly don't think that the residents that have voiced opinions have gotten a lot of consideration on this issue. Maybe it's going too far down the road. But we raised our concerns about noise and parking and foot traffic. And I'll be honest, a lot of it stems from the fact that we already have so much to put up with the events that are held in town. I bought my house in 2004, and back then, most of the downtown was retail and restaurants, everything from Lavender Cafe down to the sandwich shop and Stuff and Style. And events at that time were two. We had Dickinson Dundee and Heritage Fest, and a handful of parades. And it was fine. I mean, inconvenient for a couple of weekends. Fast forward today, we have events, it seems like sometimes every week. It's not, obviously. Once a month, plus all the live music that now occurs in all the restaurants and bars downtown, which was not that big when I moved here. So our tolerance level isn't great. Introduce the fact that Aliano's got a four-season facility two winters ago, I believe. I'm to the point where I never open my windows because there's always live music. And even with the air conditioning on or the furnace on, I hear live music. When there's events, people are parked all the way up our street. We hear them going back to their cars 11, 12 o'clock at night sometimes. So that has already shortened our tolerance for this proposed gas throwing business. It's unfortunate at the zoning committee, the sound didn't work. I wish if you haven't, that you listen to the noise that occurs at this facility and ask if there's any way it can be contained within the building. I don't know how it could possibly be. And it sounds like gunshot. And I don't want to be in my house or on my deck or in my yard and be listening to that noise. That's my concern. And the proposal to also have outside throwing lanes. That's a huge concern to me. And I just for kicks today, I looked at the Google reviews. This is a 4-star review from 3 months ago. Everything was great. Only 2 downfalls though. It is a little hard to spot since it's in an industrial park, and it is in desperate need of sound dampening inside. So that's somebody who loves the business, and they think it's too loud. So that's my concern, and I just ask you all, if we're going to vote this in place, what is going to be done to keep the noise from affecting our lives? I mean, it's a quality of life issue, and I worry when I go to sell my house, somebody going to watch that right 3 houses away from me? So that's what I'm asking.
Well, if I could, Nancy, thank you. We fully understand, and as it was addressed at the P&Z meeting the other night, a big issue for you and then a number of other residents who are here to discuss it was parking and foot traffic, and specifically parking on the street. And the board is working on that one. We're making,
That's great, especially for people who live on Van Buren and Lower Railroad. For me, it's not as much of an issue, it's the events that kill me.
yeah.
But if you solve that, that's great. Then my number one concern is sound.
The sound, well, and.
I can hear McGraw shooting sometimes from my house. I mean, and you know, okay, McGraw skeet shooting, it's a tournament, it's not that often,
Yeah.
okay. But to sit outside in the evening and want to enjoy my beautiful yard and have to listen to that,
Yeah.
and you know, when the music is loud, if I have to go to bed early and I'm laying in bed waiting for the music to stop, I'm gonna guess this place will have music too. It's an old cinder block building that the roof was raised on, which probably made it worse. I don't know how you keep sound within there unless you hang a lot of acoustic material.
Well, the dampening of efforts I know that they're going to be making are going to be significant. It's going to be a 2x6 structured wall, which it is right now, and there's going to be sound insulation that'll be going in, and then basically wood covering instead of like drywall. And then on top of that, then will be the targets and the sectioned off lanes that they have. So
Can you test it in various weather conditions? I mean, you don't have the leaves off the trees yet, but there's a big difference for our live music in the winter. It carries so much more. So can you actually stand outside the building and make sure that it's not going to impact our homes?
well, I mean, we have noise ordinances that, and if they're, you know, if it doesn't work out, you know, we'll you know, address it. It's about the best we can do. You know, with live music that takes place in the events that we have, you know, it's a tough one. I mean, I understand where you're coming from.
I suck it up. It's not my favorite thing, but I do. I've actually called the police on my neighbors because they have live music more than I've ever called on downtown events. I just want you to be cognizant of the fact it was a residential area before this became this huge event entertainment district. And it's still a residential area right behind it.
Right. Well, and I'm talking to Jim and Lisa over at Aliano's, in fact, for nice weather months, whether or not a partition on the back of the beer garden could be put up.
Maybe that would help.
I think
When they did
help
Bandito
the
parties, it helped.
Right. That and then, you know, asking them to turn it down. I've seen the number of the acts that they have there, and, you know, it's, what I've seen is that, you know, individuals, not full bands, but it is amplified.
The bands are the worst because a lot of times what I hear is disjointed up the hill, and it sounds like band karaoke.
Yeah.
You know, you have like the percussion on one beat and the singer on another.
Right.
You know, and maybe that's just because I'm uphill from it all,
Well,
but.
yeah, and I am too. I'm much further up this back. In fact, I'm up near Lions Park, and
Okay.
there are times when
You hear it.
I can hear live music happening. I can't distinguish it, but I know what it is.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of a resonance type of you know, situation that it's going to carry. And there have been a number of times where I don't hear it at all, and I know that there's live music going down in the
Yeah.
So
And I'll agree with that too.
Yeah,
Depends
I
on
don't know if
music,
it's
depends on the weather,
yeah,
which way the
or
wind's
something,
blowing.
yeah. I don't know what it is that does it.
But I'm just really concerned axe throwing, it's got a totally different noise to it it's great that they're looking at soundproofing, but unless they cover the vaulted ceiling, you have glass windows up there. I mean, how is that going to contain the noise?
Yeah, that I don't know. I don't know that the sound will, you know, resonate up, but I don't know that it won't. So we'll look at that, make sure that, you know, before it's open, we'll have a test on it, see,
Okay.
see what does happen. But they're definitely aware of it, Angelo and his brother and his father, so they know that this is a concern.
Because their other business is an industrial park. You know,
Yeah.
I know he made a point of saying there's a medical company there, and I went home and looked it up. It's a medical manufacturing company in a building behind theirs.
Okay.
So they make their own noise, you know?
Well, or the hours of operation don't
Yeah.
reflect, right? Which in defense of this operation too, it'll be closing during the week at 9 o'clock, which is good.
That's good.
And at 10
And
o'clock.
11 on weekends?
10 or 11, they're not sure.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be hard, you know?
Yeah, so, but we'll see. I mean, I've seen a lot of it. Believe it, I just saw it the other day on ESPN again. It's,
I have nothing against the sport. I mean, it doesn't interest
No.
me, but that's fine.
When I was watching it yesterday, in fact, I was pulling in and keying in on the noise that it makes. I don't know if all these guys are top-notch or so, but it was just a low thud, you know what I mean? Soft wood as the target, and when it sticks, you know, I mean, it hardly made any sound at all. Now, of course, this is not telling me, but,
Yeah, and they're going to deaden the noise so they can hear the target speakers.
we work with their, and if it doesn't comply, if it does cause problems, we'll absolutely address it, We're hoping that it doesn't, but.
And could we let the indoor go before you even entertain the outdoor?
The outdoor is not.
Yeah, not just
Okay.
yet, that's just.
Okay, because it
possibility down the
said
line.
winter, spring, 2000.
Right, right, we'll get, an opportunity to test the water with it, but, and there hasn't been any talk of there,
Okay.
so that won't be an issue. But yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye on it.
Okay, those are my concerns, and I appreciate, I have never come to any village meetings, I've never been so attached to it. I kind of was late to the game on the Alianos thing, they already had their structure up before I went, what the heck? And I emailed the board at that point, but this is a very strong issue to me, because it's
I get
quality
that.
of life.
And, well, it is, and then Barbara, I can't remember the other gal that was here with you the other day at the,
There's Lisa Hanley was here,
Yeah.
Mitch was here,
Lisa.
or not, Mitch's husband, Brian was here.
Right.
I've talked to a lot of my neighbors, and a lot of them work, so they can't come,
Yeah.
and nobody's thrilled with this.
Right. Well, yeah, we'll have to see, how it goes. Like I say, we'll give it a chance and see how it goes, But I know too, though, that I guess my point was that when I spoke to them after the meeting, we spoke at length, the real big issue for all of them was parking. And specifically, the on-street parking at.
Well, they get their driveways blocked in all the time,
Yeah,
and they get belligerent people.
Right, but again, as we work, the board, I should say, we're working on trying to, mitigate some of the problems that we have with parking in downtown, and once we get that taken care of, it's gonna alleviate a lot of those problems.
I hope so.
Yeah, I really.
Or could you consider residential parking only, which would be a whole host of other problems?
Well, yeah, right, there's other concerns that they'll bring up, but that's an option, so we'll look at that.
Okay,
So,
well, thank you again for listening.
thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who'd like to?
Can I speak to that before you go? Sure. So, one thing, I don't know, so I live on Water Street, and,
Do you
I'm sorry,
mind saying the name?
can you give us your name and address?
sure, it's Tom Walla, and it's 206 Water Street.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. And several years ago, there was an issue with Diamond Gyms. I don't know if you suffered through that, but it certainly was a real issue for me. What I
Diamond Gyms has been a lot better.
I know, it's because of me. So actually, not just me, but also because of our police department.
Okay,
And so I had to come, to your point, like, you have to come to these things and you have to make noise, okay? And before I started coming, they didn't have, and their village attorney was literally pounding on the desk, yelling at me, saying they didn't have anything they can enforce. So finally, they do have a noise ordinance that they can enforce. It's more than just a little lax, but eventually it got to the point where I would call the police, and they would come, they would take readings, and finally, it's a timing thing, finally they were in violation of even the lax noise ordinance, and honestly, with these businesses, money talks, and so when it's in violation, and I'm not saying call the police department because I don't want to bother you guys as much as possible, but the reality is they've been very, very sympathetic in enforcing what's on the books. And you mentioned you called your neighbors, but if you feel that it's a violation, the way things get done, the way change happens, is basically the almighty dollar. And so if this becomes an issue, and they have this decibel meter, or at least they did at the time, I don't know if he got retired, or whatever, they have this equipment to be able to test this to see if it's in violation or not. And I know they were very, very supportive, the police department was very supportive of it. I often felt like it was a ridiculous waste of time for the police department, but
Yeah.
unfortunately in this town, there's a lot of waste of time, unfortunately, and the only way to make change is to be able to do that. So I just wanted to say that I went through the same experience, and it was really bad. And yes, it is a lot better now. Part of it is because the owners moved elsewhere, but also, one of the owners has moved elsewhere, but also just because, like, they got fined, I don't know what they got fined, and they walked out of the hearing and just were ranting and raving, we'll never have live music over there or anything like that. Okay, I mean, if you're ruining our lives and the people that live here, that's correct. So, just so you know, that there are certainly things in place to be able to address these issues. I don't hear things as much as, I mean, I hear things. I knew when I moved in, it was a downtown area, I knew that. At the time, when this was going on, Diamond Jim's was way over the top. I haven't complained about Diamond Jim's since. So if things get addressed and they have these mechanisms in place to do that, then, hopefully, that'll help you feel better that this exists.
I mean, Tom, to your point too, there was something that happened this week, or last week, I can't remember which, but somebody was complaining about brush on the street that hadn't been picked up from the storm on Facebook. And before I could even text Phil and the Public Works team, somebody had gotten on the phone with Village Hall. Well, it's like, I feel like we want to taste our phone number. Call us if you need us about something, if there's a problem. We're here every Monday. Don't go on Facebook. Come here, talk to the police department, talk to somebody in administration. And you're gonna call your trustees. We're all here, the phone numbers are on the website. I think there's even a way to contact people through the website.
Yeah,
So-
I got your emails from the
Yeah,
website, so
yeah.
that's how I started.
So, and I appreciate you reaching out and everything else, but,
Because
so
I
many
normally
people.
don't read your agendas. The only reason I found out about it is because I was driving by and I saw the sign, and then simultaneously Dundee Daily News was welcoming this new business, and I was like, what?
Right, but the communication, if you communicate to the right people, or reach out to somebody and say, who's the right person to talk about this, we can get you there, and things can get solved pretty quickly if it's a reasonable ask, and if it's within the ordinances, or, that Tom is stating, so.
Right, and it may take time, definitely takes time here, there's no doubt about that, but like I said, there are, again, these mechanisms, the police department, I mean, even the other day, one of your officers actually came to my house to talk to me about another issue, super supportive, those are good people, and again, I feel it feels totally ridiculous. I had an issue with one of my neighbors who was riding a dirt bike around his freaking yard. And he would do it at 11 o'clock at night. I mean, it's like, is there even an ordinance in place, for that? Like, I don't know. And so, again, it hasn't been perfect, but it's important for you to read agendas. It's important for you to show up when there's an issue. It's been a while since I've been here, but there's a reason I'm here. But ultimately, it takes some time, and you've got to work with these people the police department will enforce obviously what's on the books, but they can't make any changes. These guys have to put that forward. And so it's a mix of working with all these people to get things done.
So you have to hear from the residents too, to know that there's an issue to address.
Right.
Well, I'm guessing you get reports on noise complaints from,
Yeah, we did it in a timely manner, we were able to follow up on it, address it immediately. I think that.
I will say I called Qualcomm on fireworks, and everybody is fabulous answering the phone.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Is that it? Anybody else? No? All right, seeing none, we'll just move on then to our consent agenda. We don't have one. So that takes us to other agenda items, which we'll start with agenda item A, if we could have a motion.
I'll make a motion to discuss and to approve an ordinance of the Village of East Dundee, Cook and Kane Counties, Illinois, approving a special use permit for the operation of a banquet hall located at 485 Dundee Avenue, East Dundee.
PTD, and a lot of questions got asked, a lot of good discussion on it. And so there was actually, believe it or not, there was a noise issue that actually got raised, but I don't think that's really gonna come into play. Your hours of operation, we're gonna be probably till midnight. Would you like to give us?
Right, right, the latest would be at midnight.
Yeah.
And we discussed at 10:30, either lowering it down or shutting it off. So whichever, come in place first, it would definitely be addressed. There will be a staff there at all time. So anytime the hall is rented out to an individual, a client, there'll always be employees there. Myself and whoever else in the security. So we're trying to figure out whether that security will be armed or not. So I know there's a lot of legal stuff behind that. So I'm working with my attorney now to figure out how all that's going to play out. But we have put a lot of things in place, a lot of guidelines. I think I gave copies. I sent a copy to Chris of my guidelines. COVID has been put in place. I have guidelines and policies for that as well.
And you have another venue business already?
No, I was going to other venues, doing events. So what I decided to do, seeing the revenue, I wanted to step into having a banquet hall of my own. But I've been in the entertainment business, event planning business ever since 2010. Corporate, I've done some for my employers and employees and family and friends, churches, church events, so yeah.
What kind of events will you be hosting?
Pardon me?
What kind of events will you be hosting?
Weddings, birthday parties, corporate events, conferences, workshops. I'll lean more toward the corporate end of it, but of course I don't want to, not have a wedding or not have a birthday party. But I'm geared so more toward doing workshops for employees and things like that, and Christmas parties, village parties, whatever, So just pretty much keeping it toned down and on a more professional level. But of course I can't, not someone come to me for a birthday party or kids party, teens party, but that type of music will be clean music only, no swearing. So I made that personally clear in my guidelines, my contract.
It was gonna be about 4,000 square feet.
A usable space, probably about 20, I think, 20-something, Chris, or 29 or something like that.
2,500 to 2,800 on the front.
Yeah, a usable space. It'll be a small setting of
So
actual
it's gonna
event space, yeah.
75 max.
75 max, 100 max, I don't want anything bigger than that right now, so.
Was there anything that was hanging in the cup for things going forward on this?
Because of the type of venue or the type of business, they would have to make sure to upgrade the bathrooms. Because there's two restrooms now, but one would have to have a urinal for this type of business, and I think they were both handicapped, but I haven't been in there in about a year or so.
It'll be all updated.
Can you speak a little bit to what you're planning on updating, the investment you're planning on?
There's some reconfiguring that has to be done. I know when you walk in the door, you'll be walking right into the banquet hall. So the plan is, hopefully we can put a lobby area where that'll deter some of the music coming out. It'll be another wall, there'll be doors. So that's my intention, to keep people from hanging out. Outside is to have somewhere where they get tired of the event, they can come to the lobby area, kind of chill there and not step outside if they have to cool off or whatever. So just putting that in place, and then having the bathrooms redone with the urinal, one of them, only one, right, has to be one of the bathrooms with the urinal, making sure we update all the handicap accessibility. And just maybe put up a couple walls, so, and a bridal suite, gotta have that. So nothing major, no big all the walls or knocking other walls down, anything like that. So once I get in there and really take a look at it and see where we need to have the contractors to come in and see where we can, do it safely and But my main thing is having that lobby area, which will definitely help deter some of that noise coming out of there. And having a space where the guests can kind of chill and don't have to stand outside, but there's no standing outside, loitering outside, no smoking outside the building, go to your car if you have to do that. But like I said, there will be security, I'll be there, employees will be there, so.
And since this is gonna be on the north end of the shopping center, have you talked in a meeting about the parking lot?
Yeah, that was part of the discussion at the Plan Commission. Even it has been getting some quotes, and there's some major
Yeah, we got
work that needs to be done.
it's
And then also on the south end, the management company, I've been talking with them too about getting their parking lot improved a little bit. So I tried to connect the two together, see if they can work with one contractor. So I emailed them both today, they didn't get back to me yet. I know they've been working on it.
Yeah, I've been talking.
actually about that, looking into affordable ways to address it, repair without having to tear up. So,
It is a condition of the ordinance as well, of the proposed ordinance, that repairs be made to the parking lot.
Well, I guess my question was, you're not buying this building.
Oh, no, it's just leasing.
We're
No.
saying that she has to repair the parking lot?
No, the owner is aware of this, that it's a condition. It was made a condition when in the application was first reviewed, before ever went to the plan commission, that this needs to be done. It's long overdue. He did about a third of it or so, half of it a couple of years ago. And that section is nice out in front of the daycare center.
And
This
see
is a little further south, and
Years ago.
he needs to do some improvement there.
All right.
So is this suite adjacent to the daycare center? Was one of my questions.
No, it's a little further down.
So there's other
There's other
businesses
businesses
between that
between them, yes.
and the daycare center?
Yes.
Yeah, as
What-
far as
What businesses are adjacent to it?
There's a bistro, liquor store right there.
Yeah, there's a liquor
It's
store
still
next door.
operating in that. So that you're to the south of that.
I'm to the south of the liquor store, yeah.
Right, and
Yeah.
there's a space in between that and then the daycare center. And then on the end, you've got one.
Are you familiar with the martial arts studio there? And I think it's Zumba or something?
Zumba.
That is the space that she'll be occupying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right
Okay.
there, yeah.
So moving out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and definitely want to remove those, old newspaper boxes that's there. I don't know if I can do that or not.
Yeah, if they're not being used, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The machines that.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are,
Antiques.
yes. Yeah, we'll look at that too. Okay, is there any other discussion?
I guess, but to be clear, this is not meant to be like a live music thing.
Well, no, not all live music, but if a wedding party wishes to have a live band there, but it was still, the music would definitely, not be, it wouldn't go past 10:30 or 10 o'clock for a live band, because I think that's too much myself. So sometimes the clients will want live bands, sometimes they just want a DJ, sometimes they just don't want music at all, so it all what their preferences are, and we have to accommodate to the best so the neighbors won't get disturbed, so. But having that conversation, with the client, the guests, so they'll understand that, at 10 o'clock or 10:30, the band, I know it's hard to tone down a band, you can easily tone down a DJ, but just knowing that at 10:30, that music may have to stop for the band. And we can put music on the DJ set, to accommodate the rest of that. So I have to put that in place for a live band.
Jennifer, was there any other aspect of this that you wanted to touch on that we might have missed in our questions?
No, I mean, there is a list of conditions, and the Planning and Zoning Commission did have quite the discussion on what the hours would be, and they came up with basically it should not occur between midnight and 9 a.m. But other than that, there really was no concerns that came up at the commission level whatsoever. And I don't think staff really has many concerns about this. Right? So unless Brad, Chris, Joe, you think of anything else?
No.
I don't think there's going to be any issue with working on soundproofing out the back, or I don't know if there's much out the front, but in that space, if there is a band, soundproofing, if there's a band or live music, because they're going to back up to the new apartment buildings going in, right?
Yeah, I know there's no soundproofing there now.
Right.
The ceiling tiles, but there's no soundproofing.
Right, okay. So that might need to be looked at as well.
And we did talk about the 10:30 time that the petitioner proposed, and the commission contemplated including, some language of something that would occur at 10:30. Shirley made a good point of, you probably couldn't turn this down, people are still going to be there, maybe they're still mingling, so we didn't want to say you have to shut the music off. But there is an opportunity here if you wanted to add something to this ordinance about 10:30. I think at the end of the day, the commission just decided that they would use the noise ordinance and then work with Shirley if it became a problem. But we talked about the apartments in this 10:30 time. It's up to you whether you want to add something additional or not.
I didn't have a chance to watch the plans.
There wasn't much discussion.
I mean, I'll say that I did watch the planning and zoning meeting, and you spoke, and I think we have an owner that's willing to work with us with problems that arise.
Right,
Feels
for sure.
good place. Do we have to amend our motion to include all these conditions, consent conditions here, or?
No, they're in the draft ordinance, and the motion was to approve
Okay.
that. So all we need to do is take a vote on it unless we wanted to add something.
Section 32. Call the question? Call the question, shall we vote?
Yeah, right, is there any other discussion? You look at anything else? No? Okay, Jennifer, take roll for
Trustee Mahoney,
Yes.
trustee Anderson,
Yes.
trustee Coonsey,
Yes.
trustee Britton,
Yes.
trustee Saviano,
Yes.
trustee Treasurer.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
These Dundee?
Thank you. Thank you so much. You won't be disappointed, I promise you that. I've been, like I said before in the meeting, I've been in charge of different type of communities, senior citizens, memory care, all that for 40 years, so I know the business. So.
Great.
Let us know if anything comes up, or, need any help.
Pardon me?
Let us know if you need anything, if anything comes up, or if you have
Okay.
any questions or anything, just,
Okay, let me know if you want to have your Christmas party there, let me know.
There you go.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. That takes us to item B, if we have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve an ordinance of the Village of East Dundee, Cook and Kane Counties, Illinois, approving a special use permit for the operation of a game room for an axe throwing lounge located at 315 4th Street, East Dundee, Illinois, 60118, in the B1 Service Business District.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion.
So I've read the emails that were sent by that lady that came in tonight, voiced concerns about noise, what have you. And I don't know if anybody here has ever been to an axe throwing lounge. I could probably say, I guess I have. They're kind of awesome. But what I will say is that, the one that I've been to was actually part of even like a strip mall. It was in or somewhere in Wisconsin. So they literally had a shared common wall with their neighbor. So if you think there's going to be a noise problem, that would most certainly be the issue with a shared common wall. And, when I was in there, it makes a thud when it hits the target. On those opportunities when you actually do hit the target. But I don't recall it being like obsessively loud. Matter of fact, they did have music, just kind of like almost like background music. It's not quite like elevator music, but it's, it's just kind of a low-key thing. And I don't remember the business itself being like loud and boisterous and like, the sounds of the axes hitting the wood targets. Again, they're usually pine, which is a soft wood with the axe stick better, so it's fairly quiet, fairly tampered.
Or Cottonwood, yeah. I
And I'm
went to
guessing-
one in Sycamore, it's called Northern Exposure, and it was in a strip mall, kind of set into, they had neighbors on both sides, and, yeah, I actually touched base with one of them, and they said they haven't had any problems with it, and so, I thought, well,
Well, there's loads over in South Barrington too.
well, there's about 40 of them, that's right.
Right.
Popular.
But I mean, like, I don't know, I haven't been to that one, but I guess it would depend on what kind of soundproofing they put in place.
Right.
Right, if you're in an industrial park, I can see not feeling like you have to put too much in place. I'm hoping that they are aware of what our expectations are,
Right.
because they're not in an industrial park, right? They're gonna be they're in a neighborhood, so.
Well, I'm also guessing if you've got an air gap between the target and the wall, because a lot of times sound will travel through solids. Like, you know, when you bang on a pipe in a building, it'll go up through the building, so the noise actually travels through the pipes. So if there's gonna be some sort of maybe, doesn't be much, just like even an inch air gap between the target and the wall, that's going to keep the sound from transmitting outside the building as well. Joe, is that correct? Or if I just talk about my,
Or some kind of sound deadening material behind it.
what's that?
Some sound deadening material would work too.
Yeah, and again, there's stuff you can put in the walls too, I mean, everything from like denim jean insulation that's like noise dampening or closed cell insulation or what have you.
Yeah.
They did discuss the outdoor, you know, they submitted plans, but it was really like a conceptual site plan with line drawings, it almost looks like parking spaces. So we don't have real plans for the outdoor, and we said, well, we can't give you that. That would require a text amendment. We can't even run that through the special use process at this point. And he understood the concerns and then was like, well, maybe it won't be outdoor, maybe it'll be an addition. So
Yeah.
the concerns that came up here about the outdoor are real concerns, but the petitioner did hear that. And I just want to let you know that is out there. The other thing that's out there is his request for a liquor license, which you could put, you know, different restrictions on at the time that he comes through with the liquor license. But he was fully aware that, you know, he's not into serving intoxicated persons. He wants to set a limit, and usually people are in and out for an hour. So I wanted to let that know that those two things came up by residents, and there is some truth to it, but it seemed to us that the petitioner was ready to address those concerns.
Do they have liquor at their other facility?
They,
Three-way or
they
two-way?
know.
They do not.
They do not. And Crystal Lake, they talked to me, was probably a little bit more conservative when they gave it to them. It was about 3 years ago, it was even newer, and they actually gave them a special use permit for only 3 years. So they're about going to renewal. So I think it was the difference between the two towns and the way they kind of approach businesses. So that's why I don't think they even asked for the liquor license.
Yeah, when I went to a two-way, they had beer and wine, that was it, no hard liquor.
Well, and they were in containers and only cans. So, I mean, what they didn't want to deal with was somebody dropping a bottle and having to deal with, you know, breakage and stuff like that. And there wasn't going to be the need for a 3 compartment sink that the Board of Health would require. So there's nothing like that. One other issue that I know a resident brought up was whether or not people were going to be bringing their own axes to this.
Actually, they do.
Well, they have.
It's like frisbee golf or something, so those who are into it have acquired their own equipment. So actually, he said, I mean, that's not most people are coming for like family, friends, or corporate type team building things. But he said there are people who are very into this and do bring their own axes. But they're hatchets, they're 14-inch hatchets. They're not axes, and I wish they would change the name to hatchets.
But there are leagues who, they have traveling teams and stuff, and those are the guys who are bringing their own
Yeah,
equipment.
it's like bowling, yeah.
But they're really serious.
And honestly, they're probably gonna be quieter than your average person because A, they're actually gonna hit the target with a blade. So they're not hitting it sideways with a big thud. They're not gonna be drinking. You know, they're competing, as it were. So I mean, they'll probably be the quietest ones that actually come to the premises.
And there's no ex-spouses allowed, so.
Well, you'll be walking in there downtown, you're hearing, touch it.
One of the things,
What's your name?
would it make sense, because like when you go to a shooting range, or you go to an archery range, you don't just carry your bow around, you got it in a case, it's sealed in a case. And even to kind of, and I don't know if that's part of the agreement or a policy that they have to put in place, but I think, I mean, honestly, if I was a resident or somebody visiting here and I saw people walking around with axes in the street, hatchets, excuse me,
Yeah.
hatchets in the street, not knowing this, it would be a bit of a cause for concern.
Just a
As
little.
It's the
well
hockey mask. It's the hockey mask.
as well as random rage, ragers or whatever. But, you know, if there's if that, you know, transporting from your car or your vehicle into the lounge, it has to be contained in a case.
How many would be as a practical matter?
I've got a couple calls with umbrellas that were long rifles, so I do see a point in
Is
that.
there-
Turned out to just be umbrellas. We do get
Yeah.
Is there a law enforcement mechanism, because it would be hard to put something in this ordinance that would be applicable to somebody who's visiting outside of the exemption. Is there a law enforcement, I mean, that you're aware of? Obviously, there's concealed carry for weapons, but,
I'm not aware of, I don't know.
okay.
I mean, if they've got a competition hatchet, if they're gonna go that far, they're probably gonna have a case for that too.
Oh,
It's probably coming with its own case or a
Because they don't want
velvet sheath or something.
I just don't know how to,
you don't want to damage your seats.
how to hold the business responsible
I mean,
for the patrons
I have
outside.
a hatchet, and it came with a cover
A sheet,
for it
yeah.
to blade,
Yeah.
or should at least.
Right.
So, I guess my question though is about the parking lot. Right now, one side of it is like pretty rough, and the other side is like a dumpster haven. Are there plans for either sides of those to freshen them up? a little
The
bit?
dumpster side, where the dumpsters are is actually owned by Otto, and it's for the restaurants there that, on River. And Blair is working with Otto to combine his land and Otto's to build a containment center, like a 20-foot by 20-foot, with a masonry wall around it and a gate. So those containers will be concealed. The other side, they do not plan on using that for parking. It may be an outdoor patio, maybe something else, but right now there are no plans whatsoever to do anything on that gravel park on North End.
Yeah, and Blair's original plans were to, no matter what the business was that came forward, it was always going to be like a patio. But like I mentioned earlier, they may want to actually put an addition on the building. Because they thought about doing the patio with outdoor axe throwing, and then they realized, oh, people aren't happy about that. So
Yeah.
they may, it's probably going to be an addition because they needed more bays
I mean,
to actually make
I think we would have to do something to improve it, so that it's not just gravel.
Well, that back wall, the retaining wall, if you will, it's, right now, it's kind of falling apart, you know, so yeah, there's that.
So-
But I had also talked to Angelo about it, and he had mentioned possibility of kind of like a pavilion type of thing that you have over at Aliano's, that they could put a similar tent arrangement that Aliano's has during the winter months to contain that.
To do what?
If it were to go to outdoor lanes. Yeah.
But that's down the road.
It is,
I don't know if
if
we.
it happens.
Okay.
You could, I mean, it may, considering some of the things we have going on downtown, it may be good to put in a condition here that it be grassed over or something, if you want it
Yeah.
You can do something.
improved, that this would be a good time.
Well, we can get, I'd like to see the,
You know, I don't know,
Yeah,
if it's gonna be a
Well,
while.
I mean, yeah, so we have some sort of dust-free or dust
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a huge.
surface, whether it's asphalt, brick pavers, concrete, grass,
yeah.
and then also, you know,
And the other thing is, you know, that there is that retaining wall. Who, would that be the property of who?
that is on Blair's property.
And then, but as it goes across, there's also fencing, and then there's like openings, where there's no fencing, not anything, you walk right through into somebody's backyard. You know,
Across the back?
what's that?
You mean across the back of the property?
Yeah, as it goes all the way, not even just this property I'm talking about now, I'm talking about down the alley. You know, there's this fencing that kind of stops and starts, you know, as people are talking about, people from the downtown and noise from the downtown, do we want to talk about ever building our own fencing that kind of goes across there and blocks some of that noise and sightliness, things like that,
I was looking at
and
the
preventing people from walking. through
aerial
the yards.
too, and I thought with the dumpster configuration that's proposed, that that would at least stop it for this property, but you're asking a bigger question.
Yeah, the property right behind it, there's no fencing between Blair's property and the property on Panther.
No, there's a retaining wall there, on that property.
No, not on the corner one, the one next to it.
Oh, the one
next to
at the
it.
dumpster.
The first one, yeah, the first one over, there's no retaining wall behind the building, and there's no fence.
Right, you could just walk through it, somebody's yard.
So they could just
Oh,
walk.
okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that would be a typical requirement, I mean, that's, we require that.
It wouldn't be on
All
this
cities,
ordinance,
but-
obviously, because it's not Blair's property at that point, but, I mean, I'm just thinking, down the road, as people are complaining about people walking through the yards, and that was one of the things, somebody coming up to their back porch and having a beer. You know, that some, fencing there might alleviate some of those issues.
Well, I think it would be something that Blair
In the
wants
proposal?
Blair to
No.
be putting in, at least in this section.
Well,
This is the building, this is Barrington, at least along this side, you want him to,
well, that's got that retaining wall there.
it's got the retaining wall, but then it's open, because it only goes part way.
Yeah.
So that's where you get the fence.
Here.
So I would think you'd want to have a fence come up to the building, so you can't get between the building and into one of the other yards, right?
Well, I was thinking of like, you know, I guess at some point, if we wanted to make our downtown look nice, we could make a uniform fencing idea that stretches all the way across and separates this alleyway, really, and, you know, these residential areas. But again, this would not be part of this ordinance, because I wouldn't want to put that on Blair, because that would be beyond his property and all that.
No, I'm not saying, yeah, I'm just saying within this scope of what the conversation for this property and this business
Yeah.
right now. But to your point, yeah, have a standard of this is what the fencing is going to be. If you want it to put it in, this is what it needs to be, or if it's a part of a facade improvement kind of grant thing that the village could share with the homeowners. I don't think the village should be, you know, I don't think the village should be subsidizing landscaping for the owners. They live, they know they're a block or 2 blocks away from a commercial street. And so, you know, while I understand that, I also back up to Dolphins Cove, so I hear their music all the time. But you know what? It's the summertime. It is what it, you know, it is what it is. Are you going to get upset about a pool and somebody with music at a pool? No.
Well, no.
You live in a community, you don't live in a wilderness.
That's something that occurs typically in the sunlit hours, where these bars
Yeah.
are operating until
Yeah.
3 o'clock in the morning in some places, so.
But it's a good point we can look to, there's also grants for this type of beautification and downtown developments that are creeping up.
I was just,
It's certainly worthwhile.
You could add, the fencing is on the north end of lot 9, you could add that they fence lot 9, lot 8, and lot 7. No one will be able to get through because of the dumpster area being reconfigured, but if you wanted that screening, you can certainly add that to this ordinance. We've added fencing to a lot of special use ordinances because the special use is creating some sort of issue, and that's why we're trying to address it. So
Okay.
I know you don't want to put the cost in, if it makes you feel better, he is going to apply for 50% of the
Right.
dumpster enclosure.
Sure.
So, that's a little,
Oh.
and we're going to be talking about fixing the alley with parking, fixing the parking spaces on the alley. So,
Well,
but this
again,
is a good time if you want
you
to
know,
add
and I get that, but
Five
if we're
properties.
gonna say just from here to here, he's gotta put up fencing, and then, a few years down the road, if we're gonna add more fencing, you know, I guess we could just match whatever.
Well, the thing I would,
put up, but-
I would also just add that, if there is, an intention to somehow close that lot, that little parking lot, then that automatically act as a fence between Barrington and the actual structure itself, so, I would hate to have to put up a fence and then only to tear it down, because their goal is to kind of renovate, if you will, but we can,
well, there's an existing fence.
Yeah,
Is
it's-
Barrington
it's
here?
trailing, isn't it?
So there is, it says existing with fence here. Is that not correct?
And then, so there's.
And then it stops. So
There's-
you could do, for these residents, you could continue that.
Well, and how much of the right of way is there that if the village wanted to do something like that, let's say, like what Scott's proposing, I mean, how much between the structures that are on Third there, or it's Fourth rather, and the lots, I mean, is it about 8 feet, something like that?
In front of them,
Yeah, that would, a lot, I mean, if the thing,
it might be 10 feet.
10 feet, okay, the other thing we have to consider too is access for utilities, town editor, or get back there, or that kind of thing.
We're talking about a fence behind Blair's building,
Right.
and that fence would run from the fence that's on the property that's on the corner, all the way to a metal building that's just south of Blair. So there would be no, you couldn't even continue to fence back there because it is a metal building.
Well, and then when you
It's
get
still
down
right on the
to
property line.
Calendo's, there's a garage, it's like a 6-unit.
Right, and that's another one that's,
That's right on the lot line, the property line, I don't know when that was built, some years ago. So being able to extend the fence beyond that, I would be into somewhere
But
drive.
none of this is public right away. This would be putting it, you have to secure permission. Right.
Okay.
Kind of as you are able to do that. But you can add it if you want. I mean, it's something we've done for several of the businesses that have gotten special use. They said you need to buffer. And we have buffering ordinances, landscaping ordinances that come into play for other things. So it's,
Well,
we
going
can also
beyond
address
There's
this in
property
the
now, I think we should probably maybe look into it a little further.
Well, and if he's already got plans to redo that dumpster area, I imagine that would include some sort of back panel to it.
the back would be enclosed all the way around with a mason area up to 6 feet tall, but there would be about a 3.5-foot walkway
Okay.
to get to the back of the lot. So there would still be a way for somebody to cut through and go through that neighbor's property. You could ask them to put a gate there. But that's always an option, and then a fence along the back, people coming the other way, so there's, and if you're only looking at probably about 70 feet of fencing along the back, so I don't think it would cost all that much.
Well, I don't know, what does everybody else think about that?
I just don't know that somebody can throw axes, it would be like just take it upon themselves to wander the back of the building, it's like two starts. I think
What's
it's,
that?
I don't understand, I mean, the concern that all of a sudden it's going to an X point then. or
Oh, no,
place.
it's not a concern about the extra place.
But I'm saying like that people are gonna be like
It's a
wandering through.
concern that's been raised by these residents, I don't know if you watched the planning and zoning, but again, there was one resident here that said that she found this drunk person on our back porch, or back deck, just having a beer, that knocked over, and, I don't know.
I mean, I've had the same thing on my yard, where that's the whole time. I mean, I've had people, I've found some things in my yard that definitely didn't come from me and showed some sort of recreation in the evening hours. But, it's like, at what point do you just gotta keep an eye on things. I mean, that's, You can't dispense everything.
I'm wondering how much a fence would help with some of the noise. I mean, I know not much,
Yeah.
but I'm wondering.
It has to be tall, and it has to be like an 8-foot fence.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Gentlemen, your timing is
Well,
good.
that yard goes up pretty steeply.
Yeah.
Right.
But the back of the building of Blair's is happening around the red.
Okay.
So
it
put a
is.
stick on post on top of that, you're almost 10
That's
foot
right,
higher.
yeah.
Almost 10 foot higher than
I don't look that close.
Fourth Street.
I guess, rather than saying it's a Blair's portion of it, that each has to build more fencing, I would rather have him say, you know, yeah, let's clean up the parking lot, let's clean up that retention wall, and,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
those things.
Because no matter what, I think the gravel area right now is gonna end up being used for parking if it hasn't been
Yeah.
designated.
Right.
I mean, they're saying they're not gonna use it parking, how are they gonna stop
Unless they
it?
block it off, or they're gonna stop.
We would have to address it.
Yeah.
So, whether to address it up front here.
Yeah, exactly.
Then not. And they really can't use it as a parking lot, even if it's dust-free, unless it's paved and they follow parking regulations, so. It's never been a parking lot for, well, it hasn't been a parking lot for a
People
sustained
park
period of
things
time.
there.
I think are people parking there now?
No,
Are people?
no.
Not anymore, they did in the past, and it was owned by, I think it was Mr. Wolf owned it, I believe. And he was, I think he lived in California, so he was very well maintained, and didn't know what was going on, but I don't believe anybody's parked there.
I mean, really, the only way you're gonna prevent people from, if it's gravel or asphalt, the only way you're gonna prevent people from using it as a parking lot is their road as well. Like, people will use it to park there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you just need to put that condition. I don't think we need another issue like that in town.
Right.
And I think we should just address it here and say either pave it to the parking standards required by code or you grass it over.
Yeah.
Because they're really, the petitioners are here. They did not intend to use that for parking.
I was actually under the impression, talking to Blair, that he was closing that off and making a patio there, is what I understood.
Yeah, I would say that should be in the ordinance. Something has to be done with it. I mean, like that, it can't just keep being gravel. If it's a patio, if it's a parking lot, if it's grass, it's fine.
It's been a site that always has been, well, for years now, because that wall has some disrepair, so if that were to be addressed, at least that much. And it kind of maybe, I don't know, do some, soften it up a little bit with some plantings perhaps.
It just needs to either obviously be parking or obviously not be parking.
Yes, if it's parking, we follow the code.
Right.
If it's not parking, we follow the other codes that are applicable. And then we have to fix the retaining wall.
Yeah.
So we amend that ordinance.
And they can section the mural that they took off the building, they could put it on the retaining.
Angela, your preference would include using that space for parking?
I mean, I guess if it was up to me, I would prefer that, potentially use it for like an outdoor
Right.
patio area.
Portion, right?
We get a lot of corporate birthdays, that kind of thing, and when the weather's nice, I think it would be nice to, sit out there, order a pizza or something, kind of in between plans, so that's kind of was our thoughts with it,
Okay.
so.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead, make that amendment for the wall and so forth.
Yeah, I'll amend my motion to include that.
Okay, and then a second.
Second.
Great.
I'll amend my second.
So was there anything that you wanted to say or adjust to the board? I mean, you got here a little late, we were all through the middle.
I guess, I think everyone here is different from the last time, right? So I mean, I guess I could tell you a little bit about our business, if everyone wanted to hear that, or if anyone wanted to ask any questions.
Is anybody?
I think we're
Okay.
I think I'm-
Yeah, I was on your website, you
Okay.
guys are getting great reviews.
Oh, yeah, we've had a lot of people in there, and, I was telling the zoning earlier, because safety and all that was kind of a concern with our crowd, who we get. Our crowd is between 45 to 55 years old, a lot of couples, date night kind of thing, so never had any issues. So I think it'll just be a good complement with everything else that's going on. It'll give people an activity to do something, before or after dinner, let's say they can walk over and, spend another hour here or so until they go home, so.
Well, one of the questions that we asked when we weren't here that nobody really knew the answer to was that if you have people coming in that are maybe they're serious about this hobby and they have their own
Sure.
act or action, is that typically
It's very
in a
rare.
case, or is it, are they walking down the street with a hatchet?
So it's very rare. The people that do come in, they're extremely serious about it. They come in with bags.
Okay.
Kind of like your guys that have their own, pool sticks and that kind of thing.
Exactly.
99% of the people won't walk into a pool hall with that, but the guy who does is pretty serious about it. Same thing with that. We do have some people that are, they're regulars there. They're a couple times a week kind of thing. And they do come in with their own bags, but it's extremely rare. And they are people, just like any business here, you have your regulars. We do know who they are. When they first come in, we look at and see what they're bringing in. Because there are certain things we do not allow. We don't allow like the throwing knives, the stars, or any of that stuff. Just their 14-inch hatchets, that's pretty much like, there's something called the World Axe Throwing League. So that's the standards that they recommend for this. They're only about 3 pounds, they're pretty small. So some places that you'll see online, they have those big like monster ones. We don't allow that. So yeah, so if somebody does bring stuff in, we'll check it, see what's going on, and then if it's something that, we'll let them use, great. Otherwise, we just leave it at the front, give them our axes that we supply, and then, give them their stuff when they're done.
Okay. And then when you go to your place, and
Yeah.
you're going there and they're in a busy hour, when you're outside in the parking lot, can you hear the axes hitting the boards?
Not so much. The setup there is a little different. It's actually a little bigger location there. You can hear noise, obviously, because that was something that was brought
From the
up.
outside.
You can hear a little bit. It's not going to be anything louder than any of the bars that are playing music or outdoor on the patio or any of that kind of thing. It's definitely not, overwhelming. It's not something crazy where you're going to hear it down the street or anything. So, but if I told you there's no noise, that's not the case. Just like anything in town here, that there's a business there. So.
Jeff, this would fall under the amusement tax that we got set up too, correct?
Yes.
All right. All right, well, does anybody else have any, questions? No, that's great. Okay, any,
Trustee Mahoney.
Yes.
Trustee Andrews.
Yes.
Trustee Lindsay.
Yes.
Trustee Burton.
Yes.
Trustee Saviano.
Yes.
Trustee Trier.
Yes.
okay. Welcome, East Dundee.
Thank you guys. We appreciate
Sure
it.
it'll work out well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hopeful. Great.
Thank you.
Okay, that then takes us to item C. We could have a motion.
I'll make a motion for discussion and a motion to approve an ordinance authorizing a development agreement by and between the Village of East Dundee, Chicago Title and Trustee Company, and HS Development AM LLC. High Street Logistics Development.
That's all right.
Okay, this is the, the big spec building then, that's one on 72 on the north side, I should say, just beyond the Rock Road development there. So, Jennifer, you want to give us a run?
Yes, I can give you a quick background, and I've tried to lay this out in the memo before you. So we've been working on a 3-party agreement for some time now. The purpose of the 3-party agreement is the TIF that is going to be generated is actually reducing the sale price of the property from Cody to High Street Logistics. So the rebate that will be issued over the life of the TIF will actually be to Cody. So that's the purpose of the 3-way agreement. There are some asks that are in the development agreement. Primarily, if you go to page 3, you're going to find what that is. The rebate of $500,000 to Cody over the life of the agreement. We believe that will take less than 3 years. The base value on the land is low, so this is going to be significant EAV growth on the property. Also, Cody is asking to relocate their existing outdoor vehicles and storage and equipment adjacent to what we call Lake Palumbo, which is property they acquired maybe 2 or 3 years ago. That won't be visible from Route 72, so it makes sense. There's other type of equipment out there in the middle of the industrial park. So that's something that's included in the development agreement. You know, in exchange, we're asking them to complete the project, which is a 170,000 square foot industrial building. They're going to invest about $15 million into the site acquisition as well as the development costs. This is something High Street has done before. They expect a 12-month lease period. That's what they expect. So some of our revenue generation projections have been based on that. The building being constructed and then filled with a tenant. Other things that are important to discuss here is what zoning items and waiver items are going to come before you later. It's really important that we understand, and I always promise the developer and the seller in this case that we'll talk about those items, even though they need to come back to you. They need to go through the zoning process to come back, but you should be aware of the items. And we can talk about them in more detail if you'd like, but I'll run through them really quickly. They're on page 4. It looks like a lot. It's less than it is. Basically, they're asking for parking in the front yard. So the way the lot is configured and the way our code describes front yards, and most codes describe front yards, they end up having 3 front yards. But they need parking, obviously, for the facility. And we actually require that they meet a parking standard, a parking calculation. So they need to encroach upon those front yards. But it's not as if you're putting a parking lot in front of a house. So the code is written to kind of preserve the parking, how parking is configured in the front, but most of our industrial facilities have parking in the front, including the Chloe property that's adjacent, has parking in the front. The side yard, so you're going to see the way the building is configured on the site plan. The side yard is significantly reduced. On the western side, and actually to the point where there is an easement that's going to go from Chloe's property onto High Street's property in 2 small areas, which is basically because they're overbuilding the parking lot. They're going to allow Chloe to use some of the parking that they're overbuilding, so there's an easement, but without that variance, they would have had to reconfigure the building in an odd shape because of the shape of the land. So obviously, these are all hardships they'll have to prove to the Planning and Zoning Commission, but this is the basic gist. The 40-foot building height is something that they need. We have a 35-foot requirement, being the end of town, and being what industrial facilities require. I don't see this as a huge issue. That building height is a very big issue when you have these old industrial buildings without proper building height. Those are the ones that are passed down. They're the ones that are not leased. So building height is important for them, and so they're asking for that. They do need a wider access drive onto Hines Road, and they've provided a traffic circulation diagram for that. And then there's these parking lot and landscaping waivers, and these are variations and waivers depending on the section of the code. So basically where they're relocating their outside storage and their vehicle storage, they're not going to be improving. So they're not going to be putting in, by Lake Colombo, they're not going to be putting in, asphalt, they're not going to be putting in lighting, they're not going to be putting in landscaping or anything like that. So they're basically just moving their equipment to the back of the industrial park. So,
But it's not improved right now. either.
it is not.
Right, it's on gravel.
Correct, yeah, it's actually been filled and there was storm sewer, I mean, it's not an attractive used developed site.
Right.
At all, at this point. So that's a series of these waivers and variances, it all revolves around those, a couple of hints they're gonna move everything to. Rezoning, this is optional, but there's a small western piece that's in the shape of a trapezoid that's actually B3. It's part of this development. The rest of it's M1, so I recommend it to High Street that if they're going through this process, they rezone that. It's not unusual for them to sell the property, they're going to sell this make it successful and sell it, so that would probably be good to have that all finalized. Also, the off-site storage requires a special use permit, same thing that we're talking about. On page 5 has the things that will only go to the village board. The reason these only go to the village board is they're not part of the zoning code. That's it. We have development standards that are outside of the zoning code, and some of those are the landscaping we talked about. But we do have landscaping on High Street's part that they're going to request because the way they're proposing their site plan, one of the main ones we see all the time is they don't want to put an island in every 10 spaces. It doesn't make sense for them to put an island in every 10 spaces. It's hard to maintain, it's hard to park for an industrial facility, so they'll be asking for that. And the only other item that we really haven't talked about is if they come back with signage that doesn't meet code, we are looking at amending the M1 code to add a signage requirement, because if you recall, we don't have signage requirements for M1. But if they come back, the tenant comes in, that would be at the time of the tenant. They would be requesting something maybe that would be additional beyond the signage. So that's the package. The package of things they would be asking for us at a later time, but we just wanted to make sure the village board is aware that this isn't built necessarily strictly to our code, that it's proposed with these variances and waivers in place. Both Kevin from Claudia is here and Jake? Adam from High Street are here. Do you have any questions from them?
Well, I'm looking at your, I don't know what you're calling this plan, preliminary landscape plan. And I see on the south side of your building where you're butting up against Route 72, a line of a lot of shrubs and trees. Is that what you guys intend to do?
That's a very good question. I can get back to you on that. I believe this is what we have preliminarily proposed, but whatever the village would require, we'll be showing on to conform with that. But traditionally, you do not see an abundance of landscaping in front of industrial properties.
What, say that again?
So traditionally, you don't see this much landscaping in front of industrial buildings.
Yeah, it seems like a lot.
It's required by our landscape code.
It is.
Anytime parking spaces and adjacent.
This is on the, page 117 on the back.
Okay, thank you.
I like it. I would love it. If you did do this. So you're saying it's required?
It is.
And they submitted the plans. This is their plans. They
Oh, here we go.
submitted.
Yeah.
So I think this is one of the items they're not asking for a waiver on with that, at this point, right?
Actually, Kevin just reminded me that this actually would be matching with the Ploy development directly to the west.
Say that one time?
This would actually be consistent with the Ploy development to the west.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So early on, I saw communication that suggested the structure was going to be 120,000 square feet. I don't know why I'm calling that. It's going to be 170?
Correct, yeah, we've had plans ranging from about 170 to about 176,000 feet. That's the,
And how many suites?
it will be designed to be divisible to 4 suites, but there's a very good chance we go to 1 user.
Maybe build out chains of
Correct, yeah, so we'll have storefront entrances on the corners in addition to the middle of the building. We'll have maximum flexibility.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. So, is there anything else that read through it all? Everybody seems to be ready to.
So are the architectural finishes on the outside, is that just, the drive it, or is it in keeping, what's the intent there? Is it going to be in keeping with also the other buildings that are just to the west?
Yeah, so it'd be a precast concrete, an architectural precast, so kind of a, if you're familiar with the Caterpillar building that was built, again, just listed there, similar to that style of building.
Okay.
So it's not going to have the
It's not going to have a brick.
facade that these other properties have. It's more of a precast industrial.
Okay.
Building has
And this white area, is in your drawings, is that windows, or is that just a different paint color?
That's a different paint color, correct?
All right. So it's definitely going to have more of just a big industrial building look compared to kind of the business suites or that type of thing that are just to the west.
It'll look like the altar for Caterpillar. So
Yeah,
or
yeah.
West to the west
Okay.
of the Rock Road structure.
Yeah, or more like the Colombo buildings. I mean, he does put a little architecture into it.
Yeah, he
Color.
More like that.
All right. Is there anything else? Sarah? Scott?
No.
Okay, Jennifer, take a roll.
Okay. Trustee Mahoney,
Yes.
trustee Andreessen,
Yes.
trustee Coonsey,
Yes.
trustee Britton,
Yes.
trustee Saviano,
Yes.
trustee Trapper.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome, East Dundee. Appreciate it. Well, that takes us to our last item on the agenda. Item D, if I could have a motion.
I'll make a motion to discuss and approve terminating the lease agreement with State of Vet for the property at Railway Fair.
Discussion?
So is this place occupied right now or no?
They just moved out.
Yeah.
That's that cistern, that's obviously dried up, but plugged out, right? I mean, it's not being used. Not being used. How deep is that? Is it about 20 feet?
So now this is one where we had, a couple, 3 years ago, we had agreed to like let somebody like live there, they were supposed to do improvements and submit plans and reports to Chris, that to my knowledge never actually happened anyway.
He may have done a couple of things, but yeah.
It's from 2013, and some improvements were made, but, I mean, it's not a residential use.
It's not, yeah.
It's far from it, the heating tech systems is more like a garage heater. You can see into the basement, and the basement contains all the water infrastructure. We need a comprehensive plan for removing, and it's not a good space. It's not a good space.
Another property which
If
will
it were ever-
look at divesting from.
Yeah, well, we talked about that. If you recall, Leila, when this came up, we talked about actually the possibility of giving it to.
Giving it something that cleans it up.
The cost of tearing it down
Yeah.
and that cistern.
It's more than
that
property's
was
worth.
way more than the land was gonna be worth, so it's sort of unfortunately, kind of a white elephant for us. But
So what does it say about that, Phil, about this termination?
I mean, I didn't hear, honestly, I didn't hear back from him, he didn't respond. I don't think he will be thrilled by it. He has, properties that he, places people, and this is his passion, and he's very passionate about it, he's very successful. But, again, this property is not designed for living. I mean, and that's the reality, and then there's the question of, what should the village be subsidizing? And this is a subsidy, we are subsidizing this.
yeah.
And a lot of it is the dogs, providing a home for the dogs, but we are providing a home for a person also. And the person is not requiring that they be a veteran or is for dog veterans. So there's a lot of questions.
Sorry, what was that?
You know, well, the person who lives there isn't necessarily a veteran, the dogs are veterans.
Oh.
So there's a question about who's being selected
So
and
was it a cow?
it's not a kennel, it's, you know, the police, law enforcement dogs, military dogs, really can't be adopted out. So what happens when they're retired? So this organization finds a home for them. So the dogs can be aggressive. That has been a problem for us trying to get into the property when we need to. We have to have the dogs removed. And so that's the purpose of the mission. The mission is good, he's going to be disappointed. There's no question that he would be
But
disappointed.
again, I mean, I remember talking about this for almost an entire meeting one time, that, you know, they said they had access to get, like, contractors things to get the place more residential friendly. And to my knowledge, none of that ever occurred.
Chris,
That was 3 years ago.
I just have a simple question. If somebody wanted to, if another person wanted to come in there, would they be able to get a occupancy permit to live in that building?
Not in the condition of this.
Right, okay. One close from that.
Okay, any good, Trish?
Elder should go to your house.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tornado or
That's why we thought like if someone's really young, I think it'd be a good time.
Anything else? Okay, we get a vote?
Trustee Mahoney.
It's
Terminate.
terminate.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, to terminate.
Trustee Andrews.
Yes, to terminate.
Trustee Coon.
Yes.
Trustee Burke.
Yes.
Trustee Savian. Trustee Trevor.
Okay, great. Well, that takes us to, excuse me, financial reports. That's a warrants list. Of course, that's in the packet. Any questions you can raise, then we'll do that. Takes us to village reports. I'll start out just by letting everybody know that there is still time, to register for the IML conference that's going to be happening later, at the end of this month later. So if you're interested in doing that, I would encourage that. One other item that I wanted to just touch base on was Oktoberfest. That's coming up. That's our last weekend for this month. I mentioned to Catherine that I'd be working it. I would encourage anybody that can to volunteer a few hours, set up, take down, whatever is needed.
We actually really need volunteers.
Yeah.
Because
We're down.
we're putting out, like, we do wristbands and it's very easy and it's not, but now we're doing some free, like, inflatable rides and things instead of the corn maze. So we do need some, like bounce house and a drop slide. So we could use some, honestly, this time we really could use some. So if you have time, that would be helpful.
So there's going to be no corn maze in front of the office this year?
We decided, well, 2 years ago, it got knocked down on Friday night, like half of it. And so that was a lot of wasted time.
By revelers.
Something.
Now you know who.
We should reach out to Brad or Catherine, because she's off this week, right?
Yeah, you can just email Brad, we'll tell you.
We'll be down. The other thing was, just want to touch base with Chris. I appreciate the help on River Leads. We're touching base with River Valley Shopping Center. The storm tore off some of their facades, so we were right on the spot the next day to clean up the mess. But I don't know what's been done so far to get them there.
I got a hold of Fred, and the insurance company came out and approved it, but he's like, he's having a difficult time getting a contractor to come out and do the work. The River Valley, they did get several proposals for the work. I reached out to both of them today to get another update, but they didn't get back to me yet. But it's in the works, it's just a matter of trying to get somebody that's available to do it.
And then did Fred have any issues with the facade on River Leads?
What do you mean?
If you take a look,
above the door, above front, it's, the siding is
Yeah, he's got, yeah, it's gonna be.
flat with the breeze and it's, yeah, it's being, looks like it's coming down, so he's gonna take care of that.
You can take care of it.
Great, outstanding, outstanding. And the only other thing was I want to touch base with Phil, I don't think he's not here, oh, well, and the, Aiden Park, I appreciate the touching base with them on that for the canopy. You know, I don't recall ever seeing that metal bird.
I don't either.
Being exposed,
But it's
but
there.
it sort of stands out now that, now that you know it's there. But the old photos, I didn't, just didn't jump out at me, but it seems to now maybe because of the color
Yeah,
change.
he replied he's gonna look into it.
Yeah. Great. And that would be it for me. So, we'll go around the room. Trish? Sorry. Fine. Okay, Rich?
No comment today.
Scott?
There's a pod behind 311 Barrington, like a storage
Yes.
container. Who's this?
That's for Black and Gray. They were storing some of their brewing materials in the vacant space that they're not gonna occupy.
Right.
So we did give them a permit to get a container out there for the term of the construction. And then they also got a dumpster out there for the construction. But they put up a bond for the parking lot. They got a permit and agreed to the terms that the road set forth.
Their financing is all in order.
Pardon me?
I've heard their financing is in order, so.
Yeah, they got approved the other day.
For the expansion, yeah, that's great, that's great. Great. Kathleen?
I just had a question about River Valley Square, and we're having a meeting next Monday, I assume? Since this is a special meeting? It's our first and third meeting.
We do kind of need one on the 27th for the street improvement project, right?
It could be either the 20th or the 22nd.
Oh, it could
So
be, are you doing the opening on that?
we're doing the bid opening on the 20th, so you would have to allow me to present the bids, not in the packet, but that night. It would be the 20th.
We probably better the 27th so we could.
That would have to be a special.
Or,
That would have to be another special.
I will not be.
Yeah, and I will be in glamorous Bentonville next Monday. So if we do have a meeting, we'll need to arrange for me to call in.
whatever you guys want. The only thing we're worried about is the street improvement program.
That doesn't have to go before the P&Z, does it?
No.
What do you agree?
Which would you like? Sorry,
or 27?
Oh, well, 27th is okay by me.
Well, no, I think we do the 20th because she can't make the 27th.
Well,
And she could do the 20th at home, so.
Right,
We could
mine is personal and hers is for work, so I think that she's allowed to call in and I'm not, right? So,
Well, Joe, I mean, is there any preference or for what you're gonna be doing with the streets program between the 20th or the 27th?
No, just that, you won't see those
numbers?
bids in the packet.
Is that the 20th?
But it would be placed on the agenda, and that's perfectly okay.
All right, so we could do the 20th, if that works for everybody.
that's all I have.
Whatever works. Okay, Scott?
No report.
Sarah?
No report.
Okay. We'll just keep on going. Thanks.
I have no report. Hello, everybody.
Okay.
So,
Shanita?
No report.
Report. Okay. Chris?
I sent out a notice of violation to the owner of 10 East Main for the parking lot back there. And he subsequently didn't comply with any of the requests to clean it up or remove the weeds.
did he say anything?
Pardon?
Did he call you or anything?
After he didn't comply with the notice of violation, I sent him a notice of peer adjudication. Then he got a hold of me, he sent me an email today. They cleaned up the garbage and they did pull the weeds. And he said he's working on getting some pricing for
Potholes?
the parking lot. So I let him know that he needs to attend the adjudication hearing regardless. And we'll discuss his progress at that point.
Along that back fence too, to the south, there's it looks like a portion of fencing or maybe a pallet or something, I don't know. But
Yeah, it's a mess back there.
yeah,
It's a
it
disgrace.
is. And then I was gonna ask you too about the signs that are up there that indicates restricting parking, no bamboos or not bamboos.
Benedicts.
Right, he may have an agreement with them, that
Yeah,
they're leasing spaces, I have no idea, but
There's
he's the,
some animosity.
well, and I don't know how you'd be able to differentiate.
well, there's one owner.
Yeah,
There's
okay.
one owner for the whole parking lot, so he may lease those other spaces, he's responsible for maintaining them.
Okay. Well, I just don't want to see, people get told if, Benedict's has a busy day, I mean, it's,
Those signs have been there for
yeah.
years and years and years and years.
Right, I don't know if anybody really adheres to them or not, but again, I don't know what sort of enforcement on our part.
There, yeah, we don't have.
There would be,
Private.
it's a private.
Right, okay. So, today?
That's about it.
Okay, Joe.
No report.
Okay, Jen?
Just that Phil was not feeling well today, which is why he's not here. So other than that, no report.
All right, great. Well, we're gonna go into an executive
Well,
session.
we got,
Oh, I'm
Public
sorry.
comment?
We do, that's right over to item 10.
non-agenda.
Public comment for non-agenda items.
And still Tom Wawa, I still live at 206 Water Street. The reason that, at least I think so, it's been a while. The reason that I came here, I know the issue came up at the last meeting, but then I reached out to a few of you about the traffic on Water Street. I've lived there since 2000, so I have a bit of a history there. Definitely noticed over the past several years that the traffic has increased. Not only just car traffic, truck traffic, semi-truck traffic has increased immensely over the past several years. Scott, I reached out to you at the time there was construction.
Yeah.
Your recommendation was to wait. I definitely was patient and I waited. Jennifer, I reached out to you. You thought maybe there could be something that could be done. I don't believe I ever heard back from you. From the last meeting, I understood that there was some sort of study in place, and I fully agree with the idea of reducing the speed limit to 30, because to this point, to 25 or lower. Because at this point, nobody's been able to explain to me why the speed limit is 30 just on that street, and I think there's one other street in East Dundee. I know the speed limit was changed in, I believe it was 1994. Rumors are that for whatever reason it was changed to some sort of federal money associated with doing the bridge over the creek. I honestly don't care, it's time to make a change. But my bigger issue is with the truck traffic. Clearly there are a trucking facility within East Dundee, but it's not just those trucks. My home office overlooks the street. I get a wonderful view of all this going by. I also get the river too. And the trucks going back and forth. There is a Woodstock Harley-Davidson truck that goes by back and forth every day. I fully understand that there's going to be a need for some trucks to go by. Personally, I think it should be local deliveries. Literally, we have your trucks for the bars, I get it, I totally understand, I'm reasonable about that. I believe, and I can't prove this, but because of the construction, people have identified Water Street as a wonderful little cut through. I personally, like I said, have been pretty patient. It's time to make change. It's not safe. My neighbor has young grandkids. My son grew up with this. He's 16 now. Thankfully, he made it to 16. It's just definitely unsafe. I was rear-ended pulling into my driveway. Accident, I get it. But this is the aggressive nature of the fact that it can take me 10 minutes to back out of my driveway. I have a new son who's driving now. It's just purely unsafe. My wife and another neighbor, they like to do gardening, and I realize it's on easement and it's not our property. They're trying to make the village look better. It's just unsafe for any of these people to be on the street. And like I said, it has exponentially increased over the time that I've been there. And for whatever reason that is, it doesn't really matter. I'm asking you guys to expedite a solution to the process. Because like I said, I've been patient, but now it's time to make a change. I spoke to, the management, I didn't even know, at the last meeting, we spoke to the issue, obviously had a concern, same concerns that I had, I never even talked to the guy. I spoke with my other neighbors in the area, I hoped they would come tonight, but obviously they didn't. Same issues, same concerns. Again, I really have no idea why the speed limit is 30. That's just a start from my perspective, that's not the end. That seems like low-hanging fruit. This is stuff that should have been done years ago, and it needs to get done now. And then I want to understand what can be done to limit the truck traffic. So this is what I'm asking you guys to do. I realize it's a non-agenda item, but we need to figure out how we move this along and quickly. So I would appreciate some focus on this issue.
Just to piggyback on what he said, I remember when we were talking about doing that development at 72 and Water Street.
Let me just interject here. So this is a special meeting, and we are limited to discussing only items that are on our agenda. It's okay for the public, obviously, you can say what you want, but the board should not engage in a group discussion of how to fix this problem. Sorry to be a, curmudgeon
But
about
what
it.
I'm asking is somebody find a way to get this on the agenda so we
We
can
put
get
it on the
this
next
moving forward.
agenda.
Yeah.
We have proposals, you may have heard, we were securing proposals for, if I can report.
You can report.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I will
that's
report.
different.
So we have proposals, we just received them, we need to take a look and review them, and it's actually for 2 streets. And it was to look at both traffic, speeds, and truck traffic. But these are required, engineering is required to change the speed limit. We can't just change the speed limit by state law. So I just want to let you know, the board and the resident here, the concerned resident, and I know Shanita and Phil have been working with you over this, that we will engage in the study. We'll ask the board to engage in the study because it's an unbudgeted item. The study may or may not show what, the resident desires, and that is something we'll have to address as we go through it. But we are ready to move forward with the study from a staff perspective and ask the board to move forward and really take a look at it and investigate it like we're required to. So we
Understood, this has been an issue that's been ongoing for many years now. I appreciate that something has finally been initiated. I guess, again, I still don't I understand that you have to go through a proper protocol to change the speed limit. It was obviously done at some point in 1994. And again, I don't understand. I mean, one would think that part of the process is to understand why it was changed in 1994. Does anybody actually understand why it was changed to 30 in 1994?
Joe might, I don't know.
You're not gonna take a look at the dig into that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it just seems as though that should be part of the process to understand, what was the driver of that. And again, whether it's 30 or 25, everybody speeds over there. I mean, one of your officers was lighting people up the other night, quite a bit. So, and definitely enforcing things, and I really appreciate that very much. But obviously it needs to be more than just that. And that takes the village boards up. So I do appreciate you guys paying attention to, especially after the long meeting, what I have to say. And I would really appreciate if we could figure out how to expedite this, just because it's been so long. And I understand there's a pandemic and all this is going on. But it's really a safety issue. Like I said, I've never heard of pulling my driver, and that's, I don't know, anybody else ever heard of pulling their driver? Oh,
Well, we'll definitely put this one on the next agenda. It is kind of odd though too, and keep it in mind that between East Dundee and Carpentersville, there's a park there too, so the idea of it being 5 miles an hour faster,
it's 25 there, it's 25 on 72. That's why I just can't connect why it would ever have been changed to 30. So if somebody can explain to me why, I probably would still complain, I get that. But it doesn't make an ounce of sense thing that they said,
obviously that predates all of us, but we'll look into that and see what we can find on that. So.
Okay, appreciate it.
Appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
Really do. So anything else? No? Okay, then, can I get a motion to adjourn into, well, we won't come back, so it'll be adjourned to executive session.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session, close the public meeting under provisions of the Illinois Meetings Act, 5 ILCS 124/2. Subsection C1, personnel and legal counsel, I think that's all we need for tonight. And that we will adjourn from executive session without coming back in the public session.
Second.
Trustee Mahon,
Yes.
trustee Andrews,
Yes.
trustee Quinn,
Yes.
trustee Britt,
Yes.
trustee Saviano,
Yes.
trustee Trick,
Yes.